Walking Interconnections paired disabled people with sustainability practitioners, and we asked people to plan and take walks together in order that they could understand each other's experience of the world. And the reason why we did that was that we wanted to get a sense of the skills and the abilities that disabled people develop through the experience of being in the environment, being disabled, which might help to contribute to our understanding for sustainability and for resilience. So things like risk assessment and overcoming obstacles, making those judgments, persistence are all part of resilience and social resilience. And we felt that often disabled people were judged as being unable rather than simply disabled, and we wanted to see whether that was true. And certainly we managed to identify lots of skills that were developed by participants in the project, and they were sharing them as they talked and walked.
Wonderful. So I don't know who's the best to ask this question. Can somebody tell me a bit about what kinds of skills they identified? Who's going to take that question?
Well, yeah, you get different perceptions if you're disabled, and it's very good for able-bodied people to hear those. So we're doing a lot more seeing and feeling and smelling, I think, and then, but also, of course, being aware of the risks that there are associated with going out and about. So those sorts of skills, and then I think turning it into an art form through the recording helps communicate the message. And there were some really interesting reflections by people going out and about. And I think it's very good to carry this forward then into health and well-being messages and equalities for people around the cities.
Fantastic. Oh, yes.
And I'd like to add to that, what Glenys has just been saying, that for me, what's come out of it, which has been really, really fascinating, is what I'm sort of labelling in my head a real sort of in-depth looking and understanding of the social aspects of sustainability. I mean, when we started all of this, the notion of interdependence was very key, and we had this in our heads. But bless my soul, this whole experience and what everybody's been doing and saying has really reinforced this in a multitude of ways. And I have to say, I think this is really, really very important. I mean, in the disability world, we know everybody talks about independent living. And of course, we understand exactly what that means. But as well as that, this notion of interdependence, how we look after each other, how we, as different communities, engage better, support each other more. I mean, it all sounds terribly basic, but heavens above, we know these are the skills we really have to develop hugely more. And I think that's come out of it.
Hello, so my name's Dee Hayden, and I've come onto this project partly through an interest in walking and arts practice. And I think for me what's been so useful and enlightening personally about the project is just recognising how limited our understanding and languages connected to the ideas and practices of walking have been. So even when we say, let's go for a walk, what assumptions are we making about that? And just a very early example of a learning moment for me as a researcher was presuming that when one goes for a walk, one gets warm. And actually, if you're a wheelchair user, you don't get warm on a cold day, you just get colder and colder. So it's a real sort of consciousness-raising activity just to walk with someone and to talk about how you walk and how you experience the landscape and what you see. For example, as Glenys has indicated, we are doing a walking, talking performance today where folk listen to an audio walk, and in doing that walk I thought the view was marvellous until the person that I was walking with pointed out that she couldn't see over the wall because she's in a wheelchair and there is no view. But what was even more remarkable was that when I showed her a picture of what was over the wall, what she'd had in her mind was much more exciting than what was really there. So we shouldn't rule out the capacity for the imagination and creative thinking, actually. You know, it's sort of we've all sort of been pulled up short of our assumptions, which is I think really what research is about, you know, making us think differently and think in bigger and more accurate ways, I guess.
My name's Terry, and I'm a disabled person who partook in these walks, and I enjoyed going on these walks and looking at how to negotiate them. Being a disabled person, I found a mobility scooter and a walking stick, and some people that were able was helpful in getting around and seeing a bit of the habitats and the countryside. Also, I was acutely aware after doing these walks that there are not many disabled people take advantage, of you don't see many, and there doesn't seem to be a great provision made for them. But it's on the whole, I think it's an original idea. Okay.
My name's Sean Sobers, and I teach photography and media, and I was involved in the arts element of this project, particularly the use of photography, use of filmmaking and audio. And what I think is important about this, we all experience the world in different ways, and walking is an experiential activity, and documenting the walks through photography, through audio recording, through conversation. There are different ways and different levels of heightening and engaging in that experience. And what I found interesting was, how people anticipated to walk before they went on the walks, and their conversations they had through that, and then photography and audio they did during, and then conversation had afterwards, how they relate to each other, and also sometimes how they didn't relate to each other, and what those kind of gaps mean in how we experience other people, our sense of ourselves, our sense of identity. And I think, it's not one way or other way, it's a multitude of ways. I think research now to use a range of different methodologies and how you get information across, I think is really important, because we're used to using a pencil and a paper, but we don't really think about that as technology. But it's the same as using a camera, using audio equipment, and we just use it as another tool to record. So it's been a fascinating project. I think it's been really important.
So the last question, almost the last question I have was what kinds of outputs have you produced that people can go and look at, the people watching the stream that would like to go and see what you've produced and maybe use some of those resources? What kinds of resources have been produced?
So there's a number of outputs that folk who are watching remotely can access. We have a website called Walking Interconnections, and if you put Walking Interconnections into any search engine, the website will come up. And we have produced a version of our hard copy published booklet, which contains the images that Sean was referring to and some of the spoken text that our co-participants spoke and wrote whilst reflecting on their experiences. And those are available on the website. And also the audio play, which is a 30-minute edited version really of 25 hours worth of talking into a 30-minute play, is available to be downloaded, and we would encourage folk to download it and to take it on a walk with them, actually, so that they're listening to folk talking about walking whilst walking. I don't know if you want to say any other materials?
Just wanted to add a little bit about what we're already seeing as impact from the project, if I may, because we finished in February, so it's been a lovely platform then for doing some work with that. So Bristol is European Green Capital next year, and we've started feeding into the planning for that. So what we've learned about sustainability is really fueling that. What we've learned about inclusive practice is really fueling that. And we're looking forward to contributing to the Rockefeller 100 Resilient Cities, which has also chosen Bristol as one of the 2 cities in the UK. And D is based in Glasgow at the University of Glasgow, and Glasgow is the other UK city. So we're really hoping to be able to make our mark there. And the other thing that we've done that's been much more immediate is that this work has enabled the emergency planning authorities in Bristol and the surrounding areas to realise they need to get together with disabled people to actually change their planning materials and their information, and that's already happened.
Articles in Transition Press.
Fantastic. Well, that's actually great to hear. I'm based in Bath, so that's really useful to hear. I'm hoping I'll see some of the benefits of that. So thank you, all of you, for speaking to us today. Are you on Twitter and keeping an eye on that?
Walk at Interconnections Twitter.
Fantastic. So if anybody does want to ask any questions having seen this interview, then do tweet and use the hashtag as well. The hashtag for the event is #AHRCCC, which is much easier.